Good morning and welcome to your early morning Stylo News Intelligence Update for May 22nd, 2026. Today, we're looking at Central Africa. We'll be examining the recent Ebola outbreak, the ongoing M23 insurgency, and the expanding crisis inside the Democratic Republic of Congo. Our goal with this explainer is simple. We're here to give you a clear, factual, and strictly neutral analysis of the intelligence patterns and key events that have shaped this region over the last 2 weeks. Before we dive into the analysis, a quick thank you to our sponsor, ProWave AI. They're the developers behind Stylo Intel Ops, which is an advanced AI-powered open-source intelligence program. They also created Stylo News, the commercial platform you can access via web and mobile apps. It's their rapid, on-demand intelligence data that actually makes today's assessment possible. Let's quickly review our route of flight for this morning. We'll start with a regional overview, then move to a stability matrix and a threat assessment. After that, we'll cover the recent timeline of escalation, examine the information environment, and wrap up with a strategic forecast. All right, Section 1, the regional overview, looking specifically at our theater of operations. As you can see, the eastern region of the Democratic Republic of Congo really serves as the operational center of gravity for instability across Central Africa. The intelligence clearly demonstrates that the conflict here isn't just some localized, isolated issue. Instead, it acts as a regional engine of insecurity. Data shows that instability radiating from the Kivu provinces and Ituri directly impacts the broader regional system. It essentially forces neighboring nations to constantly react to spillover threats, refugee movements, and proxy engagements. Moving on to Section 2, the stability matrix, where we assess the regional nations. Let's break down our intelligence assessment of the structural vulnerabilities across 5 key nations. The DRC is currently classified as unstable. It remains the center of the insurgency and is highly reliant on foreign and proxy forces for its security. Now, looking at the Central African Republic, or CAR, it's fragile and only conditionally stable. The capital, Bangui, holds, but the state is structurally weak outside those core areas. Then we have Burundi. We classify it as stable but brittle. It's facing elevated internal stress, which includes reported military dissatisfaction over unpaid deployments in the DRC. Finally, Uganda and Rwanda are both categorized as stable but exposed. Uganda faces western border exposure to militant spillover, while Rwanda deals with strategic proxy tensions and the ever-present risk of cross-border escalation. Next is Section 3, our threat assessment, focusing on the M23 and ADF profiles. It's vital that we analytically distinguish between the primary threats operating in this region. First, we have the M23, also known as the AFC. Analysts assess them as an insurgent or rebel force with very distinct territorial and political ambitions. As proof of their capability, intelligence indicates they're actually imposing parallel administrative functions, like implementing Rwandan school exams right inside occupied DRC territory. Now contrast that with the ADF, or ISCAP. The ADF operates as a transnational terrorist organization, and they have an ideological alignment with the Islamic State. Their operations are defined by a history of mass casualty violence that directly targets civilian populations. Beyond M23 and the ADF, the security environment here is severely complicated by several secondary armed actors. We're currently tracking the FDLR, which is an anti-Rwanda armed group operating from within the DRC. There's also Kodako, a localized militia driving fierce communal violence over in Ituri. On top of that, there are numerous fragmented Mai Mai or Wazalendo factions, along with residual elements of the Lord's Resistance Army presenting a chronic threat in those remote tri-border areas. To put that into perspective, analysts assess there are over 200 non-state armed groups operating in the DRC today. It's a staggering reality that profoundly degrades Kinshasa's internal cohesion. Bringing us to Section 4, the timeline of escalation, tracking key events from late April through mid-May. The past 2 weeks have delivered a rapid succession of critical developments. Starting on May 1st, the United States imposed sanctions on former DRC President Joseph Kabila for alleged support of rebel elements. Then, on May 11th, we saw a major kinetic escalation. M23 forces seized Uvira, directly threatening the Burundi border and key access routes. Just a few days later, on May 15th, reports indicated that M23 partially withdrew from those key positions. This was likely an initial response to intense U.S. and diplomatic pressure. And then, quite significantly, on May 18th, the World Health Organization declared the Bundibugyo Ebola outbreak a public health emergency of international concern. This WHO Ebola declaration introduces a severe, compounding crisis to the entire region. It injects massive non-kinetic stressors into what is already a highly volatile kinetic environment. Now, while the outbreak is obviously a public health matter rather than a terrorist event, it acts as a massive threat multiplier. It restricts freedom of movement, it degrades an already strained state capacity, and it raises very serious force health protection concerns for diplomatic personnel, aid workers, and regional military forces operating right along the DRC-Uganda frontier. Section 5. The Information Environment, looking at social media and emerging narratives. Our open-source intelligence monitoring reveals some distinct narrative patterns across key monitored tags. First, the U.S. sanctions against Joseph Kabila appear to be broadly supported within the DRC, but they still remain highly polarizing among different political factions. Second, there's deep public skepticism regarding the durability of U.S.-mediated ceasefires, especially following the rapid seizure and contested withdrawal from Uvira. Finally, we're observing competing, hardening narratives regarding alleged human rights atrocities committed by M23 and Rwandan forces. These allegations are severely polarizing the information space and increasing the reputational risks for all diplomatic interventions in the area. And finally, Section 6, our strategic forecast and watch list for the near term. Based on current intelligence estimates, we highly recommend tracking 3 concrete watch items in the coming days. Step 1. Closely monitor M23 maneuvers around Uvira. Analysts need to determine if their recent pullback represents a genuine disengagement or if it's simply a tactical redeployment to higher ground to preserve their combat power. Step 2. Track the Ebola containment efforts along the DRC-Uganda frontier. Any failure here could drastically alter the regional security and logistics posture. And Step 3. Watch carefully for indicators of reduced internal military resilience or civil unrest in Burundi. This could easily be triggered by the ongoing physical and economic strains of their involvement in the DRC theater. To conclude the analytical portion of today's explainer, I want to leave you with this exact assessment from the recent intelligence estimate. It states, Central Africa is not experiencing a single region-wide collapse, but the security trajectory remains negative, creating a compounded threat environment. As multiple dimensions of crisis, from insurgent warfare to public health emergencies, continue to overlap, we have to ask ourselves, at what point does a compounded threat environment outpace the region's capacity for containment? Thank you for joining us for this early morning Stylo News Intelligence update. We hope this objective presentation of the facts has given you a clear, balanced understanding of the current Central African theater. Now, for a deeper, ongoing analysis of these specific events, we highly recommend you tune in to the Stylo News Intel Update Morning podcast. You can find it on your favorite channel or simply by following the link attached to this post. And to access this kind of AI-powered global intelligence on demand, make sure to subscribe at www.stylonews.com. Good morning and stay informed.